Hi everyone. You know, last year at this time, in my secular job, the Department of Veteran Affairs sent me over to Germany. And my job there was to teach all the soldiers, airmen, Marines, and all that good stuff, all of them about their VA benefits before they get out. That's kind of like what I did. It was a beautiful trip. It really was. And I was there around Christmas time, so I got to see some incredible celebrations at Nuremberg, Prague, Czechoslovakia, and things like that. But the one thing that really hit me the most was it was Thanksgiving Day. I had nowhere to go. I had no family or relatives, obviously, over in Germany. So I decided to just go drive around in the German backcountry in the Bavaria forest. And the reason why I did it was because everybody in Germany, they didn't celebrate Thanksgiving, so I did. They were working, nothing to do, so I went driving. So I'm driving in Bavaria, the back roads and everything, and I'm driving along one day, and I look up and I see this place that said Flossenberg concentration camp. And I went, what the heck? They can't be serious. So I drove over there to what was, in fact, the concentration camp. And it was such an eerie day. The fog was just so thick. It was a slight drizzle, but I was bored, had nothing else to do. And as I looked around the concentration camp, I realized it was kind of like a living museum. I realized I was like the only person there. So I went in through the columns. There was this large gate. And I found out later that's where they would drive or pull the railroad cars up to and drop all the prisoners, mainly Jewish prisoners, off. So as I followed the track, it was interesting because it would go from point A to point B to point C to point D, and etc. The same route that the Jewish prisoners would take. And it was really sad because, it was just an eerie day anyway, just this low fog. I was the only one in the whole place except for a person who had actually been at that camp who was now a docent. He would take you around and show you things. So we kind of formed a friendship because I was the only one there and he had nothing else to do, so he's showing me around. And the one thing that there were two things that struck me the most was there was a kind of like a canyon that goes down like this. And in that canyon, it was a pretty big canyon, there were two buildings. One was the crematorium where they would, hate to say it, but burn the people alive, cremate them alive, and the gas chamber next to them. But that was number one thing that got me. But number two that struck me so odd was about a quarter of a mile from the gas chamber and the crematorium was a church. And when I first looked at that church, it was shrouded in fog. It was so eerie looking. I went, I got to go see this. And as I'm walking over there, I got thinking to myself, what kind of church would be here in the middle of a concentration camp? It had guard towers surrounding it, barbed wire, the works. And it's like, who could worship any kind of a god in there? So I opened it up, and lo and behold, it was a Christian church, or they wanted to call it that. As I looked in, there were pictures of Jesus everywhere, angels. It was a beautiful place, beautiful place. And as Hans, my guide, started telling me, he said they would go out and they would cremate them, they would kill a bunch of Jewish people, and they would come back in and then worship and praise Jesus. How weird is that? How weird is that? So today I was thinking, there's a lot of similarity in today's world with what happened there. There's a gentleman by the name of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of the greatest theologians ever. I mean, this guy was awesome. He was a great apologist. An apologist is somebody who argues other, or I don't like to use the word argue really. They like to tell people about why Jesus really exists. So Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Christian, preacher, pastor, theologian, the whole works, before Hitler took over. So when Hitler took over, Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, you know what? I'm not going for that. I'm not going to worship Hitler. I'm going to worship Jesus Christ. Long story short, you can imagine the persecution he went through, but he was actually executed right where I was standing. I got to see his last journal, the clothes he was wearing, the whole works. And the reason why I bring that up is because, once again, it's so similar to what we're going through in today's world. You can have a church building that looks beautiful, like the one at Flossenberg concentration camp did. It was as beautiful as they come. Gorgeous church. But just because a church is there doesn't mean it's doing its job. You see, that church only cared about what was going on inside. A quarter of a mile away, people were being unjustly put to death in barbaric ways, but the church didn't care. They only cared about what was inside. We celebrate Jesus Christ during Christmas because he came to save us from our sins. That's a basic, that's a give me. He came and they called him Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God with us. God is with us. So we need to get a hold of the church and get a hold of our own shirt collars and start getting out into the world. And that's a hard thing to do. And what I mean by that is we can't sit behind our walls, celebrate Jesus Christ, while a quarter of a mile away, somebody's hurting. How can we do that? That's hypocrisy. We have to get off our own duffs and get out there and start taking care of others. When was the last time that anybody watching here went outside and helped someone else? I'm hoping there's a ton of people that say, I am. Because good on you. Because that's what Jesus Christ truly came to do. That's why we celebrate Christmas. Is because we celebrate Christmas because Jesus Christ came in the form of man so that he could die on the cross as a sacrifice for our sins. So that we no longer have to worry about our sins. Well, let me rephrase that. We are forgiven of our sins. And we have a chance to become heirs in the kingdom of heaven. It's that simple. So as I look back there, and I look back at my time at that concentration camp, it was life-changing. It really was. But also when I looked at it at that church and went, wow, such a beautiful church, but yet a quarter of a mile away, they're just lining up the Jewish population and Germans like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and they're just putting them in like that, and they're executing them for no reason. And what did the church a quarter of a mile away do about it? Not a thing. They closed their door, closed their eyes, and they went on worshiping Jesus. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what's right and what's wrong, but I think we can pretty much agree that that's wrong. The church and Christians both need to take the blinders off, see what's really going on in the world, stop arguing about politics, stop arguing about everything in the world, and start focusing on Jesus and become more focused on Jesus. Because none of this is going to go away until we do that. So, if you know of someone that's hurting, someone that's out of food, someone that doesn't have a home, help them out. That's why Jesus came, and that's why we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, is because that was his whole mission. That's what he wanted to do. That's what his mission statement was to help others, to give them new life. So get out there today, get out there tomorrow, and after Christmas too. Don't let it just be a Christmas thing, but when Christmas is over, continue to go out and help those who everybody ignores and who have no way out. Help them. So that's just my little spill on it, because I get a little, I'm kind of a strange individual. Everybody else is thinking about Christmas and presents, and for some reason I can't stop thinking about the homeless, the prisoners, the people over there fighting for our freedom and things like that. I guess it's because I've experienced so much of it myself. So keep those in prayer. Keep those people that don't know where their next meal's coming from, or who are overseas alone. Keep them in prayer. And remember that Jesus, he died and he saved us. He died for us and he saved us. So remember the real reason for Christmas, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Love ya.